veins. Watch you take all your problems and throw them all away. It's a different type of feeling I can't put into words, I can't explain. This is what it sounds like. 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 You wanna know, but you never did. What you need to do is start listening, let it start flowing in till you start craving it, then maybe everything you need to know starts pouring in. Let me show you the way, let it flow through your veins. Watch you take all your problems and throw them all away. Music is that feeling I can't put into words, I can't explain. This is what it sounds like. This is what it sounds like. What it sounds like. This is 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 what it sounds like.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where you're from. Come on and get up. Beat all the odds, have some fun. We're gonna shake the world and move our feet. Just join me and get done with your beat. And say, oh, hey, oh, hey, oh, hey, oh. Down to the ground. Down to the ground now. To the African. Oh, hey, oh, hey, oh, hey, oh. Move all around. Move all around now. To the African world. Show the world what you can do. As I'm too slow or fast, you and your crew, ladies and gentlemen, don't be afraid. Taking each country one by one to the stage. Leave all your worry behind. Freedom sound to ring alarm. Move all around now to the African drum. Hey, oh, hey, oh, hey, oh. Down to the ground now to the African drum. Hey, oh, hey, oh, hey, oh. Move all around now to the African drum. To the African drum. Be strong, people. Don't feel, don't cry. She needs, he needs, they need. Everybody's pulling. Unknown caller.
Alexander, this is your mother. Call me. I was just calling to find out if you all right. May God go with you. I know you're like an angel, honey, with your broken wings. But fly, they were men themselves.
Hey, we were born in a place similar to the Garden of Eden. In the warmth of the evening, after the fruit was eaten. Mentally, it felt like hell. My destiny was to fail. Prophesied to me by circumstances I cannot share. And I heard a voice tell me softly that we would make it, even though we had to fake it. Lifestyles of the rich and faithless. I had to be on candid camera, hopefully. Then she told me, fly high, but I can't with these broken wings. Try and dictate future. What world I serve, you know this. And saying I rebuke you. No longer do you have the power over me. Christ broke my chains, I renewed my mind, and now I'm spreading my wings. I'm flying higher than the eye can see. I'm with the sun, and the prince of the air is under me. Get it?
Good morning and happy Tuesday, Revealing Truth Ministries. Man, it's a good Tuesday. The weather is nice, but it's good to be in the building. Good morning. Good to be in the building. The staff is in the building. The live audience is in the building. Give us some love. As you can see, right? They are in the building today. And we want to welcome you to the virtual building. Thank you for joining us for today's Deeper Dive session. You know, the Deeper Dive gives us the opportunity to attend to what God has said to us, because we have determined to be people who are most blessed. Pastor Brian is here in the Stability Studio. Good morning, Pastor Brian. And we are here to have a deeper dive, take a deeper dive into Sunday's message. It's a season, not a sentence. Type that in the chat. It's a season, not a sentence. You need to type that in the chat. I think some of y'all, you probably got a person on your mind who you need to share that with. Let them know it's a season, not a sentence. And right away, when I think about the title and what the title means, it just brings relief. I just see it as like, it brings relief. Like I'm not locked into this situation. Like, there's more than light at the end of the tunnel. Does a lot, just unpacks a lot. So let's get into it, Pastor Brian.
Yes, sir.
And one of the first points that I have here is just to have some conversation about how when we look around and whether it be trouble that's close or trouble that's distant, right? But instead of these things conflicting or canceling out our faith or making us question where God is or where we are in proximity to Him, it really verifies our faith. It confirms some things that we've already been told. So let's start there with that thought. Faith verified.
Faith verified. Yeah, and that's really looking towards, just are established truths, you know, and what God told us life would be like, you know, and how just through his word, he just didn't lie to us.
Right.
And although a lot of times, I know we said on Sunday, it's not what we want to hear, you know, because it's already been said to us, it should honestly build confidence within us.
Right.
Like these aren't unprecedented times. These aren't surprising times to God. Like God's not mismanaging what he's doing. He's not mismanaging his will. He's not mismanaging what he has for my life. Like he actually spoke that this is what it would feel like.
Right.
That this is what it would be. And really that should, you know, maybe not in the ways our feelings, our preferences want to renew our mind, but it should help us renew our mind, which will help us further understand what God's doing. You know,
Let me pull this out to see if it's necessary, see if this connects with anybody who's in the chat or those of you who are here in the building. What I saw also in that point was sometimes when we think about what Paul told Timothy, like in these times, all these things will happen. You know, you have households against each other and all those things that happen. I think most of the time we see that as distant trouble. Like that's what's happening in society, the world around me. And we connect that word to distant trouble. But Sunday, when I listened to the message, I see this relates to near trouble. Like there's some present stuff in your house that falls in that same context.
and we you know, we kind of start the year off right. The whole year of content is about like, oh, that stuff we thought was out there, it's here,
right.
And so we're really, you know, we're on that same theme. Like, well, what is here? Well, this is what's here. Right. You know, this is what is right here. It ain't out there. It's right here in your midst.
Right.
But that's not a cause for concern. You know, really, that's verification that God ain't lied to me. That the word is true. What it said it would be like, and what it would feel like, and what people would do and how they would act. It is accurate to what I am witnessing. But the point is, if it's accurate in that, it's also accurate in how I can expect to see God in this same time. Like so that's why I say it's verifying my faith, right? If I didn't see that, then I would also might be concerned about, well, man, is these promises true? Because you missed the boat as to what life would look like. But it's like when you're like, oh no, he ain't missed the boat. Like this is exactly what's happening in my house, in my community, what's happening around my church. This is exactly what's happening. Then it's like, okay, that also means that everything else is true too.
That's good. And it also means, because if there's some present situations and circumstances we can look at that this points to, but we know that this was revealed, this was shown a long time ago. Like it's written in the Bible. So this is something that was said a long time ago. It also lets me know that, or I didn't start. Like this didn't start with me. I think a lot one of the like a slippery slope for a lot of believers is thinking that there's something that I did to start this stuff, to create this situation, and then, you know, that opens the door for a person to get on a downward slide, like doubting themselves, doubting God's using them and all those things. But it didn't start with you. Like you didn't start this trouble. How you say it on Sunday?
You cannot stop what you didn't start, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Like you are a part of a long line, right? It's there's a godly heritage, right? And you know, which, like I say, it's dual purpose, right? Is to show us that, for one, don't be out there confused, you know. But then secondly, at no point do you have to change your expectation of what God said, because hey, if this is true, that means also everything concerning what he promised me is true. Like this is all accurate, right? And it's not something that has started because of me, right? But it is something that I most definitely am a part of. And I have a choice to make, right? I have a choice to make. I can either allow what I see to continue to build a reactionary life for me, or I can say, you know what, I already know what God said, I already know what he's promised, and I'm just going to remain faithful because that's what he told me to do.
Yeah.
And he's not like I can use the excuse of what I see to change what I do, because he already told me this would be the atmosphere.
Right.
Like this would be the atmosphere, and there might be some. That's what we're trying to say. There might be some persecution for a simple reason. That's not complicated.
Yeah.
Why? Because what you're choosing to be faithful in
Yes.
is countercultural, right? It's against the grain. You're gonna find yourself living in moments where what God is telling you to do is completely different than everybody in the room. That shouldn't feel strange to you, right? Because you understand the time that you have been birthed in. You understand where God has placed you, you know. But it's always to remember, and that's where we talked about last week, that Jesus knows your limits.
Right.
That he wouldn't put you in a place where he didn't put what was necessary for you to succeed in that same place inside of you. He was aware of all of this.
Right.
Which reminds me, just stay faithful.
Yeah.
Like if he was aware, then why should I act surprised, right? And I think that's one of the biggest things that we'll continue to work on, right? Because I believe we're all aware of what God can do. We just haven't matured to understanding what it feels like when he's doing it.
That's good.
Right? It's like, you know, I see so many people that they can tell you what God is, what he's promised, what this is, what that is, what this is. They can tell you all of it, and they're completely unaware of what it feels like when he's actually doing it.
Right.
And that's what causes the doubt to come in. That's what causes the waveriness to come in. It isn't because you're unaware of what God can do. Most of the people know what God can do. They just have no idea of what it feels like while he's doing it.
That's good. That's good. So you talk about how Paul spends a lot of time connecting those feelings.
I truly believe that's why when you see Paul in his writings and you see him, you see far more of a just understanding of what it would feel like for you to be saved, versus when you're looking through the Old Testament. When you're looking through, you don't see them talk much about their feelings and what it felt like, versus when you get into the New Testament. Of course, we got Paul, right? Paul did most of the writing, and Paul talks a lot about his feelings, right? You know, he talks about it feels like we're fragile clay jars. Right? You know, he could have said clay jars,
Right.
but he said fragile.
Right.
Why is he putting fragile clay jars? So that you can connect with what it feels like, you know. And you're seeing that in his writings, where there's always just this descriptive, this emotional connection, this thing that lets you know that if you feel fragile, right, you're walking the path because you have this great power inside of you, and it's not about you being weak, but always understanding that there's something greater coming through you. There's something greater in you, and you may feel as though it's more powerful than you are. Right, but that's okay, because you have this great treasure in a fragile clay jar, not just a clay jar.
It's fragile.
It's fragile,
Right.
right? But why is Paul doing this? Because we will quit because our emotions don't align with what we think his will is working, right? Like that is people's number one spot of quitting, is because how they thought it would feel like.
Right.
When God's doing it doesn't match what it feels like when he's doing it.
Right.
And I like to say it like this. To me, it's funny, right? Like, and suddenly is literally our direct response to the fact that we don't know what it feels like when God's doing something.
Yeah. Right.
Like, if it was an and suddenly, you know what you literally told me? You didn't know what it felt like when God was doing it.
Right.
It was an and suddenly because you thought it was done,
Yeah.
but God was still working it.
Right.
And it surprised you, because it definitely ain't an and suddenly to God. Like God had been planned it.
Right.
You just was unaware that he was working on it.
Right.
And so then we wake up, it's an and suddenly. What are we literally saying? We're saying like, man, I had no idea in my emotions, in my mind, like it was surprised.
Right. Right. So what I was feeling through this process didn't match the result of the process.
It didn't match the result.
So much so I didn't even know the result was coming. That's
was
what
an and suddenly.
That's right.
To you.
That's
That is just evidence that, man, sometimes we can be so far off. Because like I said, it wasn't an and suddenly to God.
Right.
It was an and suddenly to us. Why? Because, man, sometimes we allow our emotions to speak louder than his word. And that's an and suddenly. You have an and suddenly because your emotions were speaking louder than his word concerning that. And so you had literally was like, it surprised me too.
Wow. That's good. That's good. That's good. And one of the most important things for us as believers is knowing that we can't live outside of God's perspective.
Yeah.
In any situation, any circumstance, we can't live outside of God's perspective.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because there's safety there, right?
Yeah.
There's safety, there's protection, which makes me think about 2 Peter chapter 1, verse 4.
Yeah.
And which I think
Which
I
is
got
that,
it.
right? I believe that, when we talk about what a message like that is designed to do, it's actually designed to grow our value and just, man, knowing what God's will is for our life. Because what you realize is that, man, there's an incredible advantage to being a part of what God is doing. And that's what 2 Peter 1 and 4 is saying, right? And because of his glory and excellence, he has given us great and precious promises. These are the promises that enable you to share in his divine nature, right? And escape the world's corruption.
That's good.
Caused by human
desires.
What are you getting here? That the world has a corruption. That there are things happening in this world that have been created by human desires. That, man, living a part of God's kingdom is how, even though all that's happening,
That's good.
Peter is speaking to Timothy, although all that's happening, this is not your final place. This is not your reality. This isn't your condition. This is the condition of the world, but this isn't what you have been sentenced to live through.
That's good.
But 2 Peter 4 says, well, how do I not become victim to all of that? He says, oh man, it's precious promises. Like, standing on what God has been said is how you don't become a victim to what's being said, right?
That's
you
good.
don't find yourself living, which is number 2, right? Right. Number 1 is like the most dangerous thing you could do as a believer is live outside of God's perspective. I would say number 2 would be is live a reactionary life.
Okay.
You living a reactionary life is like the second worst thing you could do
Yeah.
as a believer.
Right.
Like, cause, and I kind of talked about it a little bit on Sunday. I didn't go in depth. If I were to go in depth in the deeper dive, is whenever I'm reacting based upon either what someone else has said, someone else has done, or what the conditions are saying, I'm switching my Lord.
One more time. Say that again.
Whenever I'm not paused there on purpose, right? But whenever I'm living a reactionary life, I am running the risk of switching my Lord.
That's good.
Like, if you do something to me right now, and then I respond to it, I'm now serving what you did.
Yeah.
Like, I'm now living according to what you did.
Right.
I'm now living
That's
according
good.
to what you said. I'm not living, and you'll be surprised how many believers are living according to what is happening to them, not what God has said about them.
That's good.
But and I'm saying it this way so it sounds as scary as it should sound, but you have switched your Lord.
Right.
Like you are now, I know sometimes we'd be like, oh man, they were we look back in the Old Testament, we're like, oh man, I can't believe they were, serving these idols. And I'm like, and you are too right now. You just because it ain't an object on the wall, but
Right.
like, you were serving, you have literally
This fundamental, foundational catch.
you doing the same thing they doing. It's
Catch
a
it.
little different.
Right.
But
Right.
if you are doing that, and that's what I mean by reactionary, where you were saying like God has literally told you to do something. Man, we talked about this we talked about it a year ago, then we brought it back up a couple months ago, right? But man, I'm trying to tell you, like, as soon as God is doing something in your life, it is without fail that like people start acting funny. And then, but then if you start reacting
Right.
to that,
Right.
what
Right.
are you doing?
Right.
And I'm
Right.
saying this so it sounds scary, but now you're switching who you serve. Because God has already told you what to do.
Right.
Like he's already given you your coordinates, giving you your plans. And guess what? This is what we have to remind ourselves. God knew that they was going to do what they going to do.
Right.
Like he knew that. He knew that. Right? But if you start recalculating, and most of the time people are like, man, I pray and ask God what to do now. And they're like, what did he say? Nothing, right? Because he already said what he said.
He already said what he said.
Right?
It's good.
He already said what he said.
Right.
He's wondering why you were questioning what has been said.
Right.
Right? And it's like, no, like, remain faithful.
Yeah.
Like, bro, you think I knew that?
Exactly.
You know,
That's
one of the first things, man, I'm telling you, one of the first things, you know, and we say it, but I'll give another example about, you know, how I apply it in my life, right? Whenever I hit an unexpected moment, I don't approach God like, what should I do? I approach God like, what did you say that I'm supposed to be living out now? Because there's just certain things for me that are like set in stone. One of the things that are set in stone about me and the relationship I have with God is that I'm a firm believer that God's a preparer of his people. Now, at the same time, what does that mean in action? It means that if I meet an unexpected moment,
Right.
I have to act like I've been prepared.
Yeah.
Because I believe God's a preparer of his people. Because he is a preparer of his people.
Right.
And so a lot of times we're like, God, what should I do? When really you got to remember what he said before.
Exactly.
Like, because he said something. And he's instructed you in a way that you won't be affected by what you see right now.
Right.
But the moment you start reacting instead of remembering, right? One of the things that the Holy Spirit's main job and role is doing in our life is to
Reminder.
bring things back to what?
Our
Remembrance, right?
Right.
Because there were things that happened, you know, things that we saw and witnessed that you may not remember in your own natural mind, but the Holy Spirit has the gift of bringing it back.
Yeah.
Like, no, there's some things you got to remember sometimes. And that's why the Holy Spirit brings things back to our remembrance. And man, there's nothing, why am I saying this? Because it changes my attitude every single day.
Right.
It changes my attitude when I act like a person who is prepared for the day. Even
Right.
when I meet a moment I didn't expect, but if my attitude is I've been prepared, I react differently.
Right.
You know, you don't look frantic.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Right.
this isn't just good living for Pastor Brian. This is good Christian living. What you're talking about right now. This isn't Pastor Brian's preference. What you just laid out is good Christian living. And another way that you said that is that we focus on what's been said versus what's being said. And I just see this. I mean, I'm thinking about so many other references in the Bible where this is what it was talking about. Like, you know, in Ephesians chapter 4, when it talks about being tossed to and fro. Like, how do you stop from being tossed to and fro? Well, stop responding. Stop living a reactionary life and be stable in what God has already said. And then you stop being tossed to and fro.
Yeah.
Your emotions will stop being all over the place.
Yeah.
I just see this helping so many people.
Yeah.
This is good stuff. You need to share this. If you haven't shared the feed, share it right now. Click the share button. Let your friends, family, your auntie know. There's some good news being shared this morning on YouTube, Facebook.
Yeah. Like,
Amen.
like we literally I like have believed that like God's given updates at the same rate people are acting random.
Doing stuff. Yeah. Let's go.
But that's because we think it's hitting God like it hit us.
Right.
But we got to remember, it's not hitting God like it hit us. It may not have been what you expected, but it was never unexpected to God.
Right.
And so we're expecting updates based on the random activities of the people around us and the circumstances we face. When God's like, I know you're expecting an update because it was random in your world. But when I told you what I said from the beginning, I knew the random was coming.
Right.
And so there ain't much of an update because I already pre-planned this, right? I've already calculated what you think needs to be a route adjustment.
Yeah.
right? And a lot of times we're looking for route adjustments and we're not getting them. It's because we're losing the fact that God already knew things before we met him.
Right.
Right. And it's like sometimes people are so hungry, right, for a route adjustment based upon what they currently see, they end up making one up in themselves. Like they like and to me, like it's there's so many points of confidence when God hasn't given me a route adjustment upon something unexpected.
Right.
One of the things that the first thought you have to think
Right.
when you're like, man, something I didn't expect this happened in my life, yet God hasn't rerouted me.
Yeah.
First thing to think is it's not big enough to stop me.
Right. Right.
It must not be. It may feel big to me, but it must not be big enough because God ain't told me to change route.
Yeah. That's good.
Like it may feel big to me, and I'm expecting a route change, but it must not be big because God ain't spoke one.
Yeah. 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 So
Right.
let's talk about this, because so what you're doing, I hear you just painting a picture of us embracing the moment, embracing who we are, who we've been called to be, even when the conditions may have us feeling a certain way. But if we embrace who we're called to be in this moment, oh man, amazing things can happen.
Right. And I know we spoke it on Sunday, right? But that is the Joshua moment, right? As for me and my house, we gonna serve the Lord. Like they were trying to give him updates.
Right.
they were like God had already told him what needed to happen. These are the instructions. They were trying to issue updates based on present circumstances.
Right.
And he just had to draw a line. You know what? Bump that. Listen,
That's good.
as for me and my house, we gonna keep going this way.
Right.
Right? like it's we gonna keep going this way. Ain't no update.
Right.
Right? You know, and
That's Joshua 24. If you want to go and study that out, read it out yourself.
15, I believe. 15.
That's good stuff.
In specifics. But but yeah, you know, and that I believe, man, it's so comforting to me that I can easily mark what Satan wants to turn as a sentence. When I say sentence, as a verdict, a permanent
Right.
moment that will forever stain what God is doing to me. He wants to do that so much when it's just a season.
Right.
It's just a season.
Yeah.
It's just a season. You know, it as people who here in the state of Florida, right, where we know hurricane season comes.
Yeah.
But it's just
And
a
it goes.
season.
Right.
It's just a season.
Yeah.
Right? It's just a season. But there's some people that won't move to Florida because hurricane season.
Right. Yeah.
And it's like it's just a season.
Yeah.
Like it's not we don't wake up every day and be like, man, is there a hurricane coming? No, because it's a season. They tell us when it comes and they tell us when it goes.
Right.
9 times out of 10, none even come.
Right.
And 9 times out of 10, even when they come, they're not even strong enough to destroy the life we built. Just apply to that in your life spiritually.
Boom.
Right?
That's
There's
good.
seasons, but that doesn't change who your God is. Even if you have to live through a season, someone's saying it could come. Half the time, it's nowhere near as worse as you thought it would be.
Right.
And it's never worth not living where you decided to live.
That's good. That's good.
Because just like God, right? Just like the insurance plan on your house, you got promises from God. Right? If the thief be found, he has returned what?
7.
All right, that's good enough for me.
That's good.
I ain't never met an insurance company that's paying out 7-fold.
Right. That's good.
So if the thief is here, I got an insurance package,
That's
umbrella coverage.
that's good.
It's beautiful. It's
That's-
7-fold. That's a lot.
That's good. That's good.
I,
I'm just don't be like your neighbor who leaves the hurricane shutters on all year long.
for that,
Just the season.
listen.
Y'all laughing because y'all got the neighbors. Your hurricane.
Don't we all?
Come on. Right.
You are living in the dark.
Right.
Your hurricane shutters are up because you don't want to take the time to turn them down, take them down. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? Like you just,
The season is over.
the season is over.
Yeah. Right. This is
Man, I'll
good.
tell you what, I have an incredible, I got new neighbors. We'll see where they're at. But GA, how much time? Oh, GA was there, right? I'm just saying, man.
Yeah.
Like, I had an incredible set of neighbors where we lived before, and I had a neighbor. This is crazy, right? He actually went around and was volunteering to take down people's hurricane shutters after the storm.
Wow.
And it's amazing because I imagine he lived in a community where he figured out people just don't want to do it, so he just figured I would be that guy. And so it was like he went around and literally, you say, just telling me the day and I'll go take them down for you, right? He took them down, folded them up, put them in the driveway. I was like, this is incredible, man.
Wow.
I'm not trying to connect this to anything that was said before.
No, that was good.
That's amazing. Shouts out to you if you're listening.
Yeah.
That you are still the number one neighbor I've ever had.
Celebrate your neighbors that are like that. I think everybody got it. At least one good neighbor, hopefully. Celebration. Or maybe you be that neighbor. You know. We're so glad to be with you today. Happy Tuesday. You know, as you go through the rest of your day, just be most blessed, right? And we look forward to seeing you as the week continues. Tomorrow is a valuable Wednesday. We will see you in the chat tomorrow. And then we'll be back here Thursday morning for another session of the Deeper Dive. Till then, know that we love you. We'll see you soon.
It's a different type of feeling I can't put into words, I can't explain. It's just one of those things. Take my hand and let me show you how it's made. Let it show you the way, let it flow through your veins. Watch it take all your problems and throw them all away. It's a different type of feeling I can't put into words, I can't